With respect to my ministers, I have every confidence in all of my ministers.
Footage captured by TVNZ shows David Seymour was warned by the organiser they did not have permission to cruise up Parliament steps.
We've been told to keep off the steps.
Twice.
We've been told by security that we cannot go on the steps.
Why not? Why not?
But he's still denying any knowledge that he was not allowed.
I didn't know I wasn't allowed to. What I did know is that it was for a good cause. It was reenacting something that had happened before. There's no specific rule against it. Nobody was harmed.
He shrugged off any potential referral to the Privileges Committee, effectively Parliament's court.
Well, what are they going to do? Bring me before Privileges Committee for driving a Land Rover?
Why were you laughing about being sent to the Privileges Committee? Like, why were you shrugging that off?
Well, I think it would be an absurdity, and as the Speaker has said, there's no way that that can happen.
Labor tried again to have Seymour censured.
The security guards here at Parliament operate under your authority, and that for any member of Parliament to not follow instructions from a security guard here at Parliament is directly undermining your authority as the occupant and the employer of those security guards.
That is a very fair point.
He was questioning your decision. That he defied your decision, and therefore a question of privilege must arise.
But while the Parliament could today hand down a punishment to Te Pāti Māori MP Taku Te Whereas for denying he called MPs liars in this speech last year.
Lies, in other words. Many in this House are masters of it.
We're aware of the decision and we respect the decision that's been made.
On driving a vehicle toward the Parliament, the Speaker's hands are tied.
There's a general view that the Speaker has all-encompassing powers, somewhat similar to Henry VIII, and therefore everyone's head is somewhat in a perilous position. That is not the case, as you well know.
Jerry Brownlee spelling out the path forward in black and white.
I have not received, as would be the normal case, a letter claiming that a privilege has been breached.
But with respect to my ministers, I have every confidence in all of my ministers.
While his other coalition partner threw the ACT leader under the wheels.
If you knew parliamentary security didn't want you to do something, would you stop?
Well, you asked me would I have done that? Of course I wouldn't have.
National and ACT playing up the harmony, both between leaders and the rest of the MPs.
Do National Party MPs respect all ACT Party MPs?
Oh, I don't know, you'd have to ask them, but we work very constructively together.
A Land Rover up the steps of Parliament and do it anyway, to deny he'd been told not to, and to criticise the security guard who stopped him? Or has he replaced standards of ministerial conduct with Health New Zealand's new mantra of fail early and fail often?
In answer to the first part of the question, the Speaker has dealt to the issue, but we don't need to take 12 to 16 contraventions of the Cabinet manual to get rid of Michael Wood.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. Does David Seymour's conduct in driving a Land Rover up the steps of Parliament, despite repeated warnings not to, along with his criticisms of the security guard who stopped him and his insistence he should have been allowed to, meet his expectations in terms of ministerial conduct?
Well, as I've said before, this is an issue for the Speaker, and the Speaker has comprehensively dealt with the issue.
Point of order, Mr Speaker.
Point of order, the Right Honourable Chris Hipkins.
Issues of ministerial conduct are absolutely questions for the Prime Minister, not for the Speaker. It would be like saying if a minister was charged by the police that would be a question for the police and not for the Prime Minister. Actually, regardless of what decisions you have taken, the Prime Minister is responsible for determining whether a minister's conduct is acceptable or not. He can't deflect the question by saying it's not his responsibility. It is.
Some further elucidation on the question, or the question, ask the question again so you know.
Does David Seymour's conduct in driving a Land Rover up the steps of Parliament, despite repeated warnings not to, along with his criticisms of the security guard who stopped him and his insistence he should have been allowed to, meet his, as Prime Minister, his expectations in terms of ministerial conduct?
As I've said before, that's an issue for the Speaker to talk about the parliamentary steps, but with respect to my ministers, I have every confidence in all of my ministers.
Point of order, Mr Speaker. The Prime Minister is responsible for determining the standards of conduct for ministers. I have asked him whether David Seymour's actions meet those standards. The Prime Minister and the Prime Minister alone sets those standards. Nobody else, not you as Speaker, not anybody else. It's not unreasonable to get an indication. I appreciate I can't insist that he says yes or no, but it's not unreasonable to get an indication from him whether David Seymour's recent conduct, particularly on Monday, meets those expectations.
Before I hear any comments on the point of order, I just want to remind members that the Speaker is not responsible for any confidence issues around ministers. The Honourable Chris Bishop.
Mr Speaker, the Prime Minister answered the question. He said in relation to parliamentary security matters that is a matter for you, quite rightly, and that he has confidence in all his ministers. The question was addressed and answered.
Well, Mr Speaker, I'd just also make the point that there are several premises in the question which are very close to misleading. I haven't insisted I be allowed to. I've actually accepted your ruling and given you an apology. I've not attacked a security guard. I've simply described the facts.
Footage captured by TVNZ shows David Seymour was warned by the organiser they did not have permission to cruise up Parliament steps.
We've been told to keep off the steps.
Twice.
We've been told by security that we cannot go on the steps.
Why not? Why not?
But he's still denying any knowledge that he was not allowed.
I didn't know I wasn't allowed to. What I did know is that it was for a good cause.
He shrugged off any potential referral to the Privileges Committee, effectively Parliament's court.
Well, what are they going to do? Bring me before Privileges Committee for driving a Land Rover?
Why were you laughing about being sent to the Privileges Committee? Like, why were you shrugging that off?
Well, you know, I think it would be an absurdity, and as the Speaker has said, there's no way that that can happen.
Labour.
No further on this. I think the Prime Minister might want to repeat his answer.
As I said, with respect to parliamentary security, that is a decision for the Speaker. I have confidence in all of my ministers.
Point of order, Mr Speaker. I didn't ask him whether he had confidence in his ministers. I asked him whether David Seymour had met his standards when it comes to ministerial conduct. The Prime Minister sets the standards for ministerial conduct. David Seymour, he is obliged to indicate to the House whether or not David Seymour is meeting those.
Well, I think in saying I have confidence in all ministers fairly covers it, but ask the question a different way if you want to. We're not going to try and get away from all this.
Some supplementary. How does driving a Land Rover up the front steps of Parliament meet his expectations around appropriate ministerial conduct?
I have expressed my views publicly on both the issues around the letter and the parliamentary steps. I have met with the Minister and had a positive and constructive conversation about it, and I have every confidence in all of my ministers.
Supplementary question then. Do Todd McClay's statement to another MP, "You're not in Mexico now," Shane Jones's statement, "Send the Mexicans home," and Winston Peters' statement, "Immigrants should, quote, show some gratitude," meet his expectations of ministerial conduct? If so, why?
Well, in answer to the last part of that question, I have huge confidence in the Deputy Prime Minister, who really believes in the Mexico-New Zealand relationship and visited the country and cares deeply about those relationships.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker. Does Shane Jones's threat to cut funding to organisations that disagree with the government meet his expectations as Prime Minister of ministerial conduct, particularly given a backbench MP in the key government was made to apologise for doing the same thing?
I think you've actually heard from, in all of those cases, members expressing in the heat of the moment in this place, they may not have got their language perfect, and they've admitted as much.
Supplementary question, Mr Speaker.
The Honourable David Seymour.
To the Prime Minister, does this government have any plans to go through the telephone book and find home buyers with Chinese-sounding names?
No.
The question, Mr Speaker. Does he think his government's decision to adopt tobacco lobby suggestions as government policy, add projects sponsored by donors to the coalition parties to the fast-track list, and appoint a gun lobbyist as firearms minister have contributed to New Zealand getting its lowest ever rating in Transparency International's Corruptions Perception Index?
I'm proud of the standing that New Zealand has in the world around transparency and no corruption. We are a high-performing country. I've just actually had meetings this morning talking about exactly that with ASEAN members as well. I'll just say to the member, it's a little bit ironic, as I said yesterday, that we're being lectured by someone who took 16 goes of contravention of the Cabinet Manual to get rid of Michael Wood. Necker fighter, he didn't even tell him he was leaving while he was travelling. We've got Stuart Nash with a multiple series of issues before he got sacked as a minister. And you want to talk to me about conduct of my ministers?
Point of order, Mr. Speaker.
Before you take the point of order, there are a number of people just sitting in that quarter of the House who are constantly speaking, or not actually speaking, barracking during that time. Stop it.
Point of order, Mr. Speaker. I suspect the reason for that was that the Prime Minister seems to be more comfortable making commentary on ministers in the previous government than ministers in his own government, noting that all of the ministers he mentioned actually lost their jobs because the previous government actually had some standards which his government doesn't seem to have.
Well, I also note that your question was about inappropriate sort of comments as you saw them, but you had a lot of inappropriate comment coming from some of your side during the answer to that question. Do you have another
supplementary? If he's willing to accept a minister breaking the rules and driving up the steps of Parliament, accept as Foreign Affairs and Trade ministers making anti-immigrant remarks, accept a senior minister threatening charities, and watch New Zealand's international reputation crumble.
Order, the Ronald Wilson-Peters.
Mr. Speaker, there's an old saying, when in Rome do what the Romans do. But the real issue here is no one can surely be condemned for expecting immigrants to come to this country to be grateful for the country they've come to. What's wrong with us when that is a complaint from that side of the House?
Well, that's actually
virtue-seeming nonsense, and he's misleading Parliament.
You've made a point, but it's not a point of order. Please don't interrupt like that. We've got a question on
to the Prime Minister. If he's willing to accept a minister breaking the rules and driving up the steps of Parliament, accept as Foreign Affairs Minister and as Trade Minister making anti-immigrant remarks, accept a senior minister threatening charities, and watch New Zealand's international reputation crumble, and his only solution seems to be to carve the country up and sell it to overseas investors, is he surprised in any way that more than half the country think New Zealand's heading in the wrong direction under his leadership?
Well, just before the Prime Minister answers, I think any reading of standing orders and requirements for questions will find that falls short or certainly very expansive on what might be expected in those questions. Prime Minister may reply.
Yeah, I reject the premise of the conflation of all those issues in that question.
Does he have confidence in the Minister for Child Poverty Reduction to meet child poverty targets, considering the Salvation Army's State of the Nation report found that in the past year, most of the indicators monitored showed worsening or unchanged outcomes for children and youth?
Absolutely, and that's why this year's budget package takes 17,000 children out of poverty compared to the last year of the Labor Greens government, which put 23,000 more children into poverty.
How can he have confidence in the Minister for Children, considering she is repealing the protections for tamariki Māori in Section 7AA of the Oranga Tamariki Act, despite the Salvation Army finding that tamariki Māori still make up more than 2/3 of children in care?
Well, the clause is being repealed because we want the paramount focus to be on the safety and safeguarding of a child. That matters above and beyond everything else. And I just say to the member, I'm also very proud to see in the Salvation Army report that youth offending is coming down, which that minister's been a great advocate for.
How can he have confidence in the Minister for Māori Development when the material hardship rate for tamariki Māori was found to be more than twice the rate for European children?
Because that minister, Minister Potaka, has done an exceptionally good job getting almost 2,000 children out of motel accommodation in emergency motels. And he has also delivered $200 million recently to Māori social housing. And what was the record of a Labor Greens government for that member who was responsible for homelessness? A lot of reports, but in 12 months, Minister Potaka has got it done. And I think the opposition should just simply say, thank you, well done, Tama Potaka, getting 2,000 children out of motels, bringing the households from 3,151 down to 591. Thank you, Tama Potaka. That's all that's needed.
Just wait while everyone is quiet.
Is he confident in his Minister of Social Development when in 2024 her response to questions regarding funding for food banks was, quote, If we're serious about dealing with the cost of living crisis, we have to pull government spending back, end quote. And if so, will he then admit that it is his government's decisions that led to sharply worsening food insecurity in 2024?
Well, again, what has created difficulty and hardship for New Zealanders has been economic mismanagement from a Labour and Greens government that let inflation get out of control, drove interest rates up, put the economy in recession and helped people lose their jobs. We care about people. If you cared about working people, I don't remember the Greens or the Labour Party supporting tax relief or working for families relief recently. I don't remember you actually supporting the more funding that's going into healthcare. I don't remember you actually supporting the more support going to Māori social housing.
Yeah, just moderate the use of the word you in this case.
Bring the Speaker.
Have me quite concerned.
Apologies.
Does he have confidence in the Minister of Housing to build 1,000 net new public homes in Auckland in 2026?
Yeah, look, he's built 2,000 houses already. But what I'd say to you is, what he's not going to do is that housing was an abject failure under the last government.
Point of order.
Point of order, Honourable Kieran McAnuff.
Thank you, sir. We need your guidance in this instance. When we have a minister, and in this instance the Prime Minister, making claims that he knows is not true, blatantly not true, in this House, what measures do we have to be able to pull this up? We cannot rely on him to come and correct it. We know that it's not true. What can we do?
Well, yep.
To the point of order, given the remark was made about apparently me, though that number is correct, and I invite the member to go to the government housing.
That's not. That may or may not be helpful. The point is that I can't sit here and know exactly whether a number relating to any one of the 70-odd portfolios that ministers administer is correct. But if but the member will know that the process is that if someone is alleged to have misled the House, then writing to the Speaker is the process, so that we can actually look into it and come to appropriate conclusions.
Speaking to the point of order, Mr. Speaker, to clarify, the question relates specifically to 1,000 net new additional public homes in Auckland in 2026.
Well, it should have stated so.
It did. Mr. Speaker, it did.
Well, then ask the question again.
I will. Thank you. Does he have confidence in the Minister of Housing to build 1,000 net additional new public homes in Auckland in 2026?
Yes, and we're on track to do that. But what we will not be doing is driving up house prices 50%, adding $180 of rent per week, having a fourfold increase in the social house wait list, and putting 3,000 to 4,000 families into motel accommodation in emergency motels. We care about New Zealand's most vulnerable folk, and we want to help them out of those situations, and that's what we're doing.